We'll start in 1 minute, 2 minutes. We got a glare. Why are we frozen? Okay, let me turn it around. You don't want to see my mess. There you go. Hi guys. Happy October. This is, hi guys. I'm going to do my best to read comments. You will know how this works. I read them. If I don't, I will try to answer as we're going. If I miss them and you need the answer right away, ask me again. I will also go on afterwards and I will read, I will answer all your questions as we go. We're going to start now because I don't want to be late. Okay, thank you all for being here. I will pop you around and we're going to start right away. Okay, see you at the end. Okay. Can you all tell how much I hate being on camera? So keep in mind, I'm on a delay. So you're on a delay. I'm not on a delay. When I'm doing my piece, because I have them watching it on another device, I kind of lose the, I'm a little bit behind. So when I gave you your prep work, this is the prep work I gave you. But I'm going to quickly show you what I did so that you know what I did. Okay, let me quickly just run through. Hi Emily, hi Jane. Elizabeth, hi Joanne, Marie, Rochelle. I'm so glad you got your piece. Helen, Virginia, Jane, Marlene, Patty, yay! I'm glad you're all here. Okay, so when I do my background is very simple. I tend to think that backgrounds make a huge difference in your piece. Okay, so I made it look like the night sky. So I took some Paynes Grey. I'm going to use Americana. I took some Paynes Grey. I took some Lavender. And this you should already have done, but I just want to go through it in case you don't, and in case you just need a refresher on how I do it. Okay, so I have out Paynes Grey, which is not shaken. So you can see where it's separating. That means I didn't shake it enough. So we have Paynes Grey, which is blue, just for FYI. Somebody I know messaged me that they bought a dark gray, but Paynes Grey is actually blue. I picked up some Lavender and some Extreme Sheen Amethyst. Okay, so all I did, and I'm just going to do this. So first I painted it Paynes Grey so that you have your base coat in. Then I'm going to take a real big brush, and if you look, my brush is splayed, no big deal. I'm going to make it damp, so I'm just going to wet and blot. I'm going to pick up Paynes Grey. Move this piece so I don't get anything on it. And what I do is I just go back and forth. Now I'm going horizontally because my sky is horizontal. Okay? While it's wet, I'll come in, same brush, so you can see the Paynes Grey. I just picked up some lavender, and I'm here, and I get a lot of lavender. But then I'm blending, and you see how I'm blending that in? But I'm still leaving streaks. You see these streaks? I'm still leaving them. But if I say, oh, that's too light, I'll go in and I'll pick up more Paynes Grey, and I'll just streak in Paynes Grey. I am not, I want these streaks. I don't want a solid background, okay? So I'm here, and I'm like this. Then I'm just going to take my paper towel, and I'm wiping, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to pick up the Amethyst. And I'm just going to pick up. Now, can you see that? What this is doing is it's giving me a glimmer of metallic. And I'll do the whole thing, but I just wanted to show you what I did for my background. And when I'm blending, I'm very lightly blending so that I'm still leaving all this. Now, and then that's your background. I just don't want this to get all over. So, when I do that, you can see I have dark areas, and I have streaks of light, and I have streaks of metallic. I don't know if you can see it on an angle. Okay, so this is giving me a very night-looking sky. Okay, and I just did, that's all I did. Then what I did is I came in and I base coated my pumpkin. Now, orange is transparent, which is why I said put the golden straw under it. So I base coated with golden straw, and then I came in and I put spiced pumpkin on top, and that will give me an opaque coverage. Okay. All right, so now we can create. Now, pumpkins. Here's a quick anatomy lesson. Each section of a pumpkin is called a rib. Okay, so we want to separate the ribs. When you have a pumpkin, and it's a dimensional pumpkin, this rib is the front rib, and then they work back from there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to shade behind the rib is on top. So this rib is in the front, this rib is behind this one, but this rib is behind this one. So the paint, when we float, is going to be towards the center rib. So we're here, and we're here, and then we're going to flip, and it's going to be here, and it's going to be here. We're also going to shade the outside edge of the pumpkin so that it goes back, and we've now got it flipping back. Okay, dark makes the item recede, light brings it towards us. So I'm going to take some heritage brick, and if I'm talking too fast, tell me, because I feel like I am. And I'm going to float. I'm using my 14 flat. I know we don't do technique, but I'm going to quickly just do a quick float so you know. I wet, I blot. When you put your water in the bristles, you have a shine on your brush. You will watch, as you blot, you'll watch the shine dissipate from the chisel edge of the brush to the ferrule. Bristles, ferrule, handle. Blot, lift. That will leave some moisture in your brush. Load your brush as close as perpendicular to the palette as you can. So I'm just getting a little bit on there. So that's wet, blot, load, and then we blend. Small strokes, very small strokes. If you do this, this is your moisture is out of your brush. If you do this, you have the right amount of moisture in your brush. You're looking to get a graduation of color. So we wet, blot, load, blend. And here is my first stroke, and you can see it's very heavy. I'm just going to blend until I have a graduation of color. And then I'm going to create my dimension. Now when you float a pumpkin, these little lumps are where the ribs begin. okay? So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to float. Remember, we're floating towards the center rim. All my bristles are down. I'm curving. Now, when I put the line drawing up, they were on my line drawing. If you transfer them in, that's fine. It's not wrong to transfer them in. Okay, all my bristles are on. I do it in one stroke. I don't pity-pat my floats. I'm here. Same thing. Well, that one could bend a little more. There we go. Okay. For everybody who came in late, welcome. And I said, I got a brush in my mouth, sorry. If you have questions, I will try to answer them as I go. What I don't answer, or I can't answer, I will answer after the fact. I will come in and I will answer every comment. Okay? So again, I'm loading. I'm going from point to point, but scooping out because it's a pumpkin. I don't like this one. So if you don't like something, come in with a wet Q-tip. Get your Q-tip at the dollar store and just take it off. I dampened it. This needed to round more. And you'll round with the edge of your pumpkin. Okay? I get my Q-tips at the dollar store because they have less cotton on them. So the fact that they have less cotton on them is best for painting. So now I'll come in and I'll just curve it just a bit more. So I'm following the same shape as my outside. And I'll come in. Now remember, my center rib is my front rib. So I'm going to now change my brush to the opposite direction. And my paint is still towards the rib we want to pull up. Remember, when we use a dark color, the dark color is to make the item recede. The light color is to bring the item close to you. What did you not know, Karen? So, tell me and I'll answer you in a minute. The dark makes the item recede, light brings the item towards us. So when we want to create dimension, we can go from a flat orange, and I've already started to create dimension. So you can see that this is behind this, and this is behind this, and this is above because it has no dark on it. Okay? That's really important. What people have a hard time with is they tend to go the opposite way. If you remember why we use the color, the dark to make the item recede and the light to bring it towards us. If you remember the reason we use it, it will help you to always remember where to put it. Okay? So that's why we do what we do. So now I'm going to come and I'm going to float the outside. Now, if you noticed, I painted over where my ghost is. So you see how, I should have painted there too. But you see where his body will come here? I did that on purpose because ghosts are transparent. So you would see a pumpkin through a ghost. Okay, I'm here. And I'm down. And if you notice, all my bristles are flat on my surface. All bristles on the surface all the time when you're floating. Don't flip your brush this way. Don't pit-pat this way. Okay, so now I've made my pumpkin look rounder, okay? But I also want it to look round this way. So I'm going to float. Now, if you look, can you see that shine? If you can see a shine, it's still wet. If it's wet, do not float over it because you'll pull it off. So just wait for it to dry. Use a blow dryer, use a fan. Lose my train of thought. I'm going to float the top of each rib, so that will make it curve backwards. Okay. Now you could really spend a long time detailing a pumpkin. We're going to do fun pumpkins for November, and at the end of this class I'll show you November. I'll show you both November pieces. I won't show you December yet, but I did last class tell you what surfaces to get from Dollar Tree. Aw, thank you. I don't know who's on, but thank you. Okay. So now I'm floating on the bottom. Now, if you get lines, take a mop, and a mop is just a fuzzy brush. Just lightly tap. Here, let me do it this way so you can see. Lightly tap up and down. I am not pulling paint. A mop is not meant to move paint. A mop is meant to soften paint. Okay. So I'm going to finish floating the bottom of each rib. And I know a bunch of you are painting along with me. And just FYI, between classes, aw, thank you, Donna. If you have questions, just message me. Or message the library, and the library will get in touch with me. I am happy to answer your questions. I answer questions all the time. Next week I will be out of Wi-Fi area, but as soon as I can, I'll answer you. But generally, I'll answer you within an hour or two. I'm really, really good. Okay, so now, okay, so here's a good example. When I was here, this wasn't dry. So you see where right here, I pulled this off when I floated this way because you can see exactly where my brush went. And that was still wet. So then you just gotta wait for it to dry. Pretend it's not there. I'm gonna cheat a little. I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna pull it in. Okay. And just fix that. Aw, thank you, Helen. One of the joys of my life is teaching, and one of the bigger joys of my life, and I'll tell you a funny story while I'm doing this. Just this week, I had a piece published in a magazine, and somebody sent me a picture. And she said, she turned the ornament upside down and did it the other way. And she said, I hope you're okay with it. And my answer to her, my answer to any of you would be, I am so honored that you choose to paint with me, or choose to paint my pieces, or choose to come and watch, that I can't even explain to you what it means to me. I truly know that I have God-given hands, and I truly know how blessed I am. So I thank you all for coming and letting me spend some time with you. Okay. That was a big ramble, right? And if you think I'm bad here, you should see me in person. I yap away. Okay, so now I'm going to dry brush. And I'm going to dry brush the center of each of my ribs. And the reason I'm going to do that is because the dark makes the item recede, but the light will bring it closer. So now I'll have even more depth. Okay? So I know you're all chatting, and that's very good. Thank you, Donna. So if I miss a comment, just yap away to me. Tell me to shut up. All right, so I use a stencil pile. I use a stencil brush to dry brush for a couple of reasons. There are 3 different dry brushes I use, but in this case I use a stencil brush. I find the old-fashioned dry brushes, which we used to use, I just washed one. It's a white bristle dry brush, but I find what happens is you get a very tough, harsh line. So I've switched. And I absolutely love this brush. It's soft, it's synthetic, you can clean it in between colors with a baby wipe or hand sanitizer, or I just have a whole bunch of them. So I load my brush, it's dry, and I'm scrubbing. I'm pulling off as much paint as I can. I want to have just a scant amount of paint on there. Okay. So I went from here to this. Now always remember that, I'll try to turn it this way. Always remember that you want to do things in the direction things are. So where we floated in the direction of our rib, we want to dry brush in the direction of our rib also. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush, and if you can see how little paint is coming off? It's going to take me a couple of coats to get that color on. Oh, that's a little better. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I did that 14 times to get that color. Okay? I don't want you to go in with blobs of paint and just put it on, because what's going to happen is it's going to look like you took a paintbrush and put on blobs of paint. You don't want that. You want to build it up slowly. Now, look at this rib versus this rib. See how dimensional that now looks? Because this is going down and this is coming up. Okay? I'll come in and I'm following the shape of the rib. Okay? I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way. So that's why I'm kind of sideways. If I go the other way, my hand will be in the way. But you'll all be so happy I bought a new camera that's on back order, that no matter how I do it, how I work, I can flip the picture. So my hand will never be in your way. I don't think. You never know with me. Okay, so see what I'm doing? Now, FYI, this piece, this video, will be up on the library's Facebook. I don't know for how long. I've been doing them since July. I do 2 a month. And they will be on the library's Facebook. If you go in to the library and go onto the Live tab, it's there for a while, and then it gets moved to the Events tab. I think it's the Events tab. So you can watch it. As of now, they're still all up. No, that's not true. We shut down in March, so I think we started in April, not July. So they're all there. Okay. Line drawings I put up on my Facebook, and I put them up for 2 weeks. The night of class, they come down, and then they become pattern packets. Just in case. Now, see what I did? See the difference in when I was dry brushing? And I just made that totally dimensional. I have nothing flat. I went from flat orange with a couple of floats and a dry brush, and I totally made it dimensional. Okay? So now I know I'm going to use this brush again when I stencil my words, and I'll show you how to highlight. So I'm just going to come in and, okay, so this is really important. I clean my brush this way while I'm going. It's only for stencil brushes and dry brushes. Don't do it with your regular brushes. You will ruin your brushes. Okay, so just do it with this. Okay, regular brushes, put soap in your hand and just this. Wiggle. You'll see the paint come out. Pull and then dry flat. If you do this, you'll ruin it real quick. And your brushes will last you a very long time if you take care of them. This particular brush, you can do that too. Okay. Now, I took the color out of it, so I know when I go in to stencil my letters that my brush will be dry and I'll be okay. 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 So now we've made our pumpkin dimensional. You see that? We're going to do our stem. Now I coated it with 1 coat of burnt umber. I'm just going to quickly come in and base coat. Now I did this on purpose because I wanted you to see when I base coat, I don't come in, use a piece of paper, I don't come in and do this. Those lumps, I don't know if you can see them, those lumps will be there forever. So all my base coats are nice and thin like that. I pull my paint. I never start at the edge. I always start in the middle. It'll dry. This will be my first coat. It'll be a bit transparent. Okay? But that's okay. Now watch what I'll do. I'll come in, start in the middle, so that any lumps are on the side. And then I'll come in. Now wherever you put your brush, ever, is the heaviest point of where your paint's going to be. Whether you're using a liner, whether you're using a flat, whether you're using an angle, whatever you're using. Now I just quickly put on another coat, and now I'm opaque. Now it depends on your color. Sometimes it'll take you 2 coats, sometimes it'll take you 3. If you're using black, it'll take you 1 in most cases. You know, if you have a very damp brush, it'll take you more than that. All right. So we're going to let that dry for a second. Okay, we'll go back to it in a second so that we can keep moving. Now, what color what, Emily? The stem is burnt umber, if that's what you're asking me. Hi, Nanette. Okay, so I'm going to take some warm white. Now, I have people ask me all the time, does it matter if you use warm white or does it matter if you use titanium white? I prefer warm white. I like my colors to be on the warmer side, so I always go to warm white. And if I'm going to highlight in white, I go to cool white. I don't use titanium white. I do not own titanium white. However, that said, that it's not a wrong thing to use warm white. So when I put warm white down in my list, it's because that's what I use. If you use titanium white and you have titanium white, use titanium white. That's not a wrong thing. Okay. So now I'm just going to take a bigger brush, something that'll kind of fit in here. All right. Now, our ghosts we want to be transparent. So what we're going to do is we're going to put on what we call a wash. Okay. You're going to take your brush, you're going to go into the water. You're going to go from the water to your paint. And okay, let me come over here. When I wash, I go from my water to my paint, and I make an inky paint. See that? See how inky it is? And I move to the blue so that you can see it. But we're going to wash in the white. Okay, but white on white is not showing you. So, you know, from the water, I'm going to go to the white. Now, one thing I find that students have a problem with is they go from the wash, from the watery paint to here, and then it like runs all over. This works for me. I come in and I blot so that I don't have a big, and it's just a little blot, and I'll come in and I'll wash. You have to work quickly. You have to work quickly because otherwise you get all these lines. Now, just say I'm here and I'm here, and just say I get all these lines that I hate. You can take your mop, and I don't hate this. This I would leave as is. But you could take your mop and just come in and soften it. But you see, you can still see right through that. Okay? I'm just going to move to a smaller brush. Now I say use a bigger brush. I'm going to use a smaller brush for my arms. I say use a bigger brush because the bigger it is for the area you're working on, the less streaks you'll have. Always blot, and I'll just come in and I'll wash. Now, I find washing quite simple. I know people have an issue with washing because they get those streaks. Part of the problem is that you're not blotting before, and the other part of the problem is that your brush is too small for your area. Now you see how I have a beautiful ghost? Now, just say, let me do this one and show you, and then I'm going to show you another way if you choose. I water it down, I blot it, I'm just going to come in and I'm going to wash. Now when I wash here, I'm washing the body. Now that one, see, I didn't put more water in. If you don't have a mop, just take your finger. I'm famous for just blotting with my finger. Okay, and I'm here. And I'm pulling my strokes. Now he's transparent. I'm here. Now I know my final piece, the edges are brighter. You are not achieving that on this step. So don't go trying to do 2 steps in one. Okay, so I'm washing. And see, I just took out that line. And that's what I did, is I didn't blot enough there. Now, you have a nice transparent ghost. Now, if you hate washing, and people hate washing, I would prefer you try to wash because it's new. You can take a sable brush. We're good. We don't have a lot of questions. But if you have questions, I'm here. Take a sable brush, which is a dry brush, load it. And when I say dry brush, the name of the brush is a dry brush, but you also use it dry. And I this is not a scrubbing one. And I'm here. And this will give you a little bit of a different look. And I'll come in. That's too heavy, huh? That's what happens when you don't pull enough off. And I'll come in. And I'll just scrub my ghost in. And I'm scrubbing him lightly. I'm on the side of my brush. And it's a different look, but he's still transparent. You can control the intensity of color a little bit better. So you see how I'm controlling my color, but I'm also making him transparent. So if you don't like to wash, you can always do a soft dry brush over it, over the area that you want to do instead. Now it's a little bit of a different look. See the different look? So here's dry brushed and here's washed. Now this one, I don't have enough white, so I'm going to go in and I'm just going to, because I have the dry brush in my hand, I'll pull just a little bit more color in. This one is perfect. Now, when I did this one, what I would have done is I just would have gone in and washed it again. But because I had the dry brush in my hand. So your options for your ghost, or anything that you want to make transparent, is a wash. When you wash, take the biggest brush you have for the area, go from the water to your paint, an inky mix, blot on a paper towel. That's real important. Blot, and then come in and stroke it. If you get too heavy, just mop. Option number 2 is dry brush. Come in with a soft dry brush. In this case, I use a sable. And just come in and softly dry brush. Okay? Option number 3 is wash and then dry brush over it. But you see how I've created transparent ghosts. Now we're going to make our edges brighter so that he looks rounded. Because while warm white is a light color, it's still darker than the color we painted him, if that makes sense. Okay? So, we've got our dimensional pumpkin, we've got our ghosts in. Now our stem is dry. Now you can tell if something's dry if when you paint you have a shine. When you have a shine, that means your paint is still wet. So dry it, walk away from it, walk away from the piece, or just go to another part. So while I was waiting for this to dry, I moved over to this element, my ghosts. Okay? So now we're going to do the same thing. We want to have dimensional stem. So we're going to take some soft black, which FYI is a very dark brown. Okay, so if you don't have soft black, take lamp black and add, take your burnt umber that you based with and add a little bit of lamp black to it. Now FYI, I always float with short flats, chisel blenders. I always say that wrong. They're shorter bristles. The shorter the bristles, the easier it is to control. Oh, you're welcome, Helen. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to float. Now, I want my stem to be dimensional. So my first float is I'm going to create this cut edge here. We want the top of the stem to fall back. So we're going to float the top. Then we want to create that area, and we're going to float under it. Both of these floats, the paint is up towards the top. So you see how I just created that area? I'm going to flip, and I'm going to float right where the stem goes into the pumpkin, because we're pushing it into the pumpkin. You see that? Thank you, Phyllis. Now, when you look at this stem, when you look at any stem, you have to remember here, I'm dark here because I'm pushing this down. I'm dark here because I'm pulling this up. I'm dark here because I'm pushing it down. Now, we want to make it round. Sorry, I wanted to get my fan. We want to make it round. So in making it round, we're going to have to float the left and the right side, because that'll push the two sides down. Now I can see I have a little shine, and that little shine says it's wet. Okay. So now we'll float the left side. FYI, I have a major block on left and right, so if I say left and it looks right, it's right. I'm going to float here. Now I can't come in and float here without pulling this off. So you do one of two things. You'll dry it or you'll bump over to the ghost. And we're going to bump over to the ghost and then we'll go back and float the other side. We'll do one ghost and then we'll bump and then we'll go back to ghosts. So to make my ghosts look dimensional, this warm white is darker than this warm white. So although they're the same color, I'm still darker than here. So this will push my ghosts back and make him appear like he's rounded. It will also make you really see he's dimensional. He's transparent. So we're going to go from this to this, minus the face, with just this next float. So we're going to take warm white and we're going to float. Remember, wet, blot, load, blend. Okay, 4 steps always when you float. My paint is right along the edge. You see how much darker that is? If you have too much water in your brush, it won't look darker. If you washed too heavy, you won't see the white. If you don't see the white, switch to, good question. What I would do is I would use a light blue. Okay, now I can't do here because it's wet. So I'll just bump over to here. And I'm separating my fingers. I'm coming here. Remember, all of my bristles are on. If you lift half of your brush, what it is, you'll have no graduation of color. And if you have no graduation of color, you are floating incorrectly. That is the whole premise behind floating, to have your graduation of color. Floating is a process. Floating is a technique that you have to master. I always say you don't have to take 900 classes. You have, but you do have to practice. So if you need to get a coloring book and just practice floating, if you need to get a piece of laminated paper or a piece of, stretch a nice piece of saran wrap over something and then just keep wiping it down. So now this is dry. I'll come in and I'll meet this and I'll come here. Now look at that ghost compared to that ghost. All I did was float the edges of that ghost. Okay. So now wet, blot, load. We'll do one more ghost and then we'll go back to the stem and then we'll do the other ghost. And I know a bunch of you are painting along with me, which is why I don't have separate boards to do each, like to just show one ghost. So if you're not painting along with me, be patient. I'll show you how to get all the way to the end. Okay, so I'm here, and I'm here. Now, I never let my students use less than a 12 flat for floating. And the reason for that is because you tend to put too much paint if it gets too small. It's all in how you load the brush. When you're loading the corner, and you will see these little tiny eyes, I could easily do a float in the eyes. I can do them much smaller than that. And so can you. You just have to load less on your brush. Now, you see how I keep moving my piece? I'm sure you do because it keeps going upside down. When you're floating, when you're painting, no matter what you're doing, always go in and move your piece so that your hand is comfortable. Don't try to do this and move your hand and get your hand all over the place. You don't want to do that, all right? You want to move your piece so that your hand is comfortable. All right, so now I'm going to take a quick break and I'm going to float, oh, not in burnt umber, in soft black. I'm going to go back and I'm just going to float the right side of the stem. So now I've floated the top, under the cut edge, the left and the right side, and the bottom. And I've jumped all over because I needed drying time. Sorry. Now this ghost I have in front of the pumpkin. This ghost I have behind the pumpkin. And that's why you don't see his body. If you wanted him on top of the pumpkin, just come in and wash his body on top of the pumpkin. Because the pumpkin should still be there. You should still see it through him. So if you wanted him on top, just come in and wash him on top. All right, so now we're going to float the edge of this ghost. Here. Remember, wet, blot, load, blend. One of my favorite techniques. Here and here. And thank you all for coming and painting with me, or sitting with me, or watching me, or just spending time. And we're here. And I will at the end show you, I'll actually show you both November pieces. I only show you at the end of this class, each class, the next month's piece. I do have some done, but we gotta have some, a girl's gotta have some secrets or some surprises. So I will show you November. Last class, the beginner class. And the beginner class, for anybody who doesn't know, I do a lot more. I go over floating a lot. I go over transferring the pattern. I do all of that stuff that I don't do here. When I showed them the beginner piece, so I will show you the beginner piece and I'll show you the intermediate piece. Okay. Now, I am not going to float along this edge because it's not a top edge. So remember, the light brings the element closer to us and the dark makes it recede. If it's under something, then you wouldn't do that edge. You can tell if something's above, if it's a full edge. You can tell it's below if it's not. Okay? Same thing here. He's underneath. My pumpkin is my full edge. Okay? Okay. Now, if you get wet, just wipe. It'll come right off. It doesn't matter. See, I won't take the paint off. And I'm a really messy painter. You will find that whenever you paint with me. I make a mess everywhere, usually all over my hands. Okay, now, let's just go through so I can show you how to do this. Because I know this is not a beginner class, but I find that people still have an issue in doing this. we're going to transfer our face on. Now, I watch people do this. They take their graphite and they go like this, and then they go like this, and now they're like, how do I line it up? Take your line drawing, line it up, and if you don't have it on tracing paper, just hold it up to the light. You can take your paper and hold it up like this, and you can still see through it. Okay? Line it up, hold it in the corner, take your transfer paper, if you don't want to draw it in, and just trace. Do not use carbon paper. Use graphite paper. Shiny side down. Okay? Graphite paper doesn't make a mess and it's easily erasable. And then I pull this out and I do this. I just flip it so then I can see. It's there. I'm happy. I'm done. All right. So always remember, graphite does not go first. Graphite goes between, but put your line drawing down first. Okay. Let's finish our stem. Honey brown. Take honey brown, just a tiny bit. And you're going to take a mezzaluna. Now, I use a mezzaluna for a reason. I use a mezzaluna because it will leave these lines. A mezzaluna is a dry brush, but I want to leave these lines. If you don't have a mezzaluna, use a regular dry brush. It'll just look a little different. Mezzalunas are used just a wee bit differently. Stencil brushes, you scrub it off. Sable brushes, you're very light on the side. Mezzaluna, you pick up your paint and you pinch. So you have just a little bit on there. You'll come in, brush straight up and down, and you'll just dry brush into the center of the stem and into the center of the top. Okay? How's that? Simple, right? And the stem is done. This brush is the only dry brush I know that you can wash between colors. I wet it, I pinch it dry, and it's ready for the next color. Most dry brushes you cannot do that with. Okay? So that's a real good thing. I always work from the back forward. Okay? So, first thing we're going to do is take a little bit of Paynes Grey, and I want to float here and here. And what we're doing is we're pushing our pumpkin behind, our ghosts rather, sorry. We're pushing our ghosts behind our pumpkin. Okay, so right now he looks like he's attached. Okay, he's attached to the pumpkin. We don't want him to be attached to the pumpkin. We want him to be behind the pumpkin. So we're going to float. We're going to pick up some Paynes Grey. And I'm using Paynes Grey because that's the initial color of our background. We're painting on the ghost. We're floating on the ghost towards the pumpkin. And we're pushing him down. See what I just did? Now, it's okay if you go back and forth, but do it in one big step. Don't do this. One step. If you hear that helicopter, I'm sorry. That's what that is. I live very close to the water and we often have helicopters. Okay, so I'm here and I'm pushing him behind the pumpkin. See how I just pushed him behind? Now they look like they're behind. This one would not get anything because he's above the pumpkin. Aw, thank you, Nat. April, thank you. Okay, so my big thing when I do anything, when I teach, is to tell you why we do something. If you know why we do it, it will make it easier, no matter what you're painting, to be able to do it, to apply it to what you're doing. Okay, so remember, I work from the back out. I am going to now come in and give my little ghosts little cheeks because it brightens him. So we're going to go back to the Heritage Brick. I'm going to use a sable brush. You can use any dry brush. And I'm going to come in and I'm just going to little circles. Now, when I say little circles, I mean little odd-shaped circles. Don't make a perfect circle, because if you make a perfect, and I'm going in the shape of a circle. If you make a perfect circle, you don't have a circle, you have a polka dot. It's at the mouth lines. It's not heavy. Make sure you're pulling enough paint off. So you see it's a nice blush. It's a blush of a cheek. And it's in Heritage Brick. So I'm now carrying my color from the pumpkin into my ghost. Whenever you have a piece, you want to carry your color through. Okay? And I have no polka dots. Okay. Now, you can use any brush you want. I use a rigger. I use a rigger for almost every piece I design. There are certain brushes that I always use. So I'm going to take my rigger. I'm going to load it with paint. When you use a rigger, and I'm going to do it on here, I just wiggle and it gives me a flat brush. You can use it for a lot of things. And when we have more time, I'll show you. But I'm just going to come in. I'm going to base coat my eyes. The only thing I will say not to use is a liner, because you'll get blobs of paint and you'll ruin your brush because you're not using it the way it's meant to be used. Now, see how my eyeballs are here? Hi, Diane. See how my eyeballs are here? I don't do that now. I do my whole eye in white. Black will always go over white, and this will give me the opportunity to create the eyeballs that I want, or the pupils that I want. I'm coming in and I'm just, now you can see I have a pretty good coverage, and I'm pulling it thin. I don't have blobs of paint. And if I do, I just blot it with my finger. I'm here. He's a wicked looking one, this one down here. I was trying to figure, I wanted them all to have different faces. I wanted them to have different facial expressions when I did this. So he ended up being a wicked little one. Okay. Now you can go in quickly. And I wouldn't even put another coat on, but if you want, I'm already dry by the time I got over there. So I'm just going to come in and I'm going to, and like I said, a good portion of that will be black. Here. And I'm here. And I'm here. I would sing to you all if I had a good singing voice. But I really don't. You just have to listen to me talk over and over and over. Okay. So, now I'm going to come in with my liner. Now here, well, let's say we're going to do black. So here, I'm going to use my rigger. Here you can line, and then I would fill in with my rigger. And I'll show you how I'm going to do those. I'm going to take lamp black. Now, the good thing about a rigger is you can use it flat, and you can fill in. You cannot flatten it, and it'll be round, and you can come in and you can line. If you have super light pressure, you can use this brush the same way you'd use a liner. Now whenever I do facial features, I always line first and then I fill in. I find that I can go in and I can adjust before I have, especially with eyes, I can adjust as I'm going. Okay, I'm here, and I'm here. And if I have too much paint on my brush, that's what I did. I just this first, and then I go here. Because that's going to be black anyway. Now my points. You see how thin that is? Because I'm on the tip of my brush and I haven't flattened it. Then I can flatten here and fill that in. I don't do this in any special order. Just wherever my brush leads me. So you don't have to start in the center, you don't have to start, it makes no difference. And feel free, last week we did a pumpkin on a steak. I'm not a fall person, so pumpkins are my fall go-to. I did, on my sample, I did one face, and then I came in and I just said, oh, I'm doing another face. And I showed them how to change faces as we were going. So you see how now I've gotten my face in. Now I'm going to take my rigger and I'm going to flatten it. Now if you don't have a rigger, line your facial features with a liner, and I'll show you when I do my ghosts, and then come in with a 2 flat or 0 flat and just fill in. Nice thin coats. You don't want lumps of paint. Okay? You want nice thin coats. Black is a nice opaque color. I don't have a lot of water in my brush. I didn't put any extra water in my brush. It was just from when I cleaned it from the last color. So one coat is good coverage. Okay. So I'm here. And I'm here. And I did this whole face with one brush. I am not a big, well, I shouldn't say that because I have 900 brushes. But I feel that you can accomplish a lot with just the brushes you love. I do have a lot of brushes. I tend, if you look at any of my designs, I tend to use the same exact brushes for every design. I take care of my brushes. I wash my brushes with the way I showed you before with Murphy's Oil Soap. And I lay them flat. Your brushes will last you such a long time if you take care of them and you're good to them. When you're base coating, rinse every so often. You don't want to get paint up in the ferrule. If you get paint up in the ferrule, that's when you ruin your brush. So you just want to rinse in between as you're going. A rigger brush is a round brush that really is a flat brush. So comes in 4 sizes, comes in 5 sizes. Comes in a 10-aught, which you all call 10/0, which is pronounced 10-aught. It comes in a 0, it comes in a 2, and a 4, and a 6. My go-to brush all the time is a 2. You can load it, wiggle, and have a flat brush. You can leave it round and have a round brush or a liner. You can flatten it and use it as both. I'm going to do pressure and then up, and pressure and up, and pressure. So you can use it as a flat and a round in the same stroke. It's one of my favorite brushes, R-I-G-G-E-R. And they've come down tremendously in price from years and years ago. I use them, honestly, for everything. So now I'll flip over to my liner, just because I know that that's what you guys are using. Now, if you're comfortable, you can still use a rigger. It's fine. You just have to use it up with very little pressure. So I'm going to line my facial details. I'm going to line my eyes. That's a bad line, huh? I'm going to decide if I want him looking up, if I want him looking down, if I want him... Now him, I made cross-eyed, the one at the top. So when you're cross-eyed, you're looking, your pupils are at each other. I generally make it a point to not do that, but this is a fun piece. So I said, oh, we can make him cross-eyed. If you want him to look up, yeah, we'll do him up. See what I did? I'm going to come in, I'm going to line him. And on this, I'm using a 10-aught liner. I'm lining his eyes. I'm lining his eyes. Now, I want him to look this way and up. So his eyes, his pupils, will go here. Now you can see he's looking up. As soon as I fill them in, you'll see he's looking up. If I wanted him to look down, his pupils would be down here. If I want him to look this way, his pupils would be over here. When you paint eyeballs, pupils, they all go the same direction. So unless you want them cross-eyed, they are both on the left side or both on the right side. Very rarely does it matter if it's the left side or the right side. It matters if they're both on the inside or they're both on the outside, because then they're cross-eyed. So that's important. And I'm here. I'll have him, let's have him look this way. I'll change him. Now on my original, he's looking down, but we'll have him looking over at the other ghost. So I just have his eyeballs that way. I'll come in. And when you use a liner, straight up and down will give you thinner lines. If you sit it back in your hand, you'll get thick lines. Now I'll come in with my rigger. Again, if you don't have a rigger, just grab a very small flat or whatever you use to do base coating on small areas. Some people use rounds. Some people use filberts. Anything that'll give you... Now see how now he's looking this way? going too fast for those that are painting with me. I just try to stay in my time frame and get done. Because you all know, anybody who hasn't been here before will learn. I can talk and talk and talk. I do that a lot. And those who have painted with me before are probably sitting home shaking their head. Yes, she can. And you see how I just pulled this whole piece together with his little faces? Because now they all have character. See that? Now, if you've fallen behind, this is the stuff you let fall behind because it's only black. You know, it doesn't, there's no big deal. I'm dripping a lot of paint tonight. Okay, now, something I find that people have a really hard time with is these little squiggles. And I do them often because they just, I did it for a couple of reasons. First of all, because I like the way it looks, but it carries my green through my piece. So I don't just have a color. If you notice, my colors are pulled all through my piece. So here's my orange, here's my orange. Here's my heritage brick, here's my heritage brick. I have black, okay? I have white going through the piece, okay? So that's real important so that your eye doesn't say, oh, why do you have that big blob of orange there, or that big blob of whatever color it happens to be. You want to pull your whole design together, okay? So I've gotten my faces in. These squiggles. I'm going to take a little bit of avocado and a little bit of olive green. Now, do this with a liner. I'm going to let this dry for a second, but I'm going to do this back here for you. When people do squiggles, they anchor their hand and they go, make sure I'm on camera. They do this and then they can't do it because they anchor their hand. Think about when you write with a pencil. When you write with a pencil, and this is huge. This will be your light bulb moment tonight. If you anchor your hand and you write your name, you get to here and you can't write it anymore. If you're writing with a pencil, you're doing this and your hand is moving, okay? You're doing the same thing. You're using this part of your hand to guide your brush. You can anchor your brush in your hand and you're moving this way. So watch my hand more than my brush. My hand is doing the shape, okay? This is not, my brush is here, I'm right on the tip of my brush, and this part of my hand is what's guiding my squiggles. Okay, so I'm going to take my liner, and I'm just going to drag back and forth between the two colors. So I'm just going to pick up, and when I say drag back and forth, I'll pick up a little avocado, I'll pick up a little of olive, okay? Not cleaning, I'm going to make sure your black's not wet so you're not pulling your hand through it. I'm going to start at the stem, and I'm just here. Make sure you're going from the water to the paint. I'm here, and if you see, I'm moving my hand. I'm anchoring the brush in my hand, and I'm using this part of my hand and moving it. I'm here, and I'm here. And you can put as many as you want. I'm anal for odd numbers. I will tell you, my students count. I have 2 leaves. I need 3 leaves. They literally count. It's very cute. Hang with me long enough and you'll do I. So I did 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. I'm going to do stenciling with you, and I'm going to do the ground with you. When I was done, I went in and I put glitter. I didn't go on the eyes or the faces. But it doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to have it, but I'm kind of a glitter person, so I kind of like that glitter. Oh, you're welcome, Jackie. Shirley, welcome late. On the stem, you float soft black. It keeps coming up who's here, so I did a rigger brush. Okay. So now, wait until you see how easy my ground is. I make things pretty easy. I'm going to go back to my Mezzaluna. Okay, it's dry. I'm going to pick up I'm still in the same green, sorry. Avocado. I'm going to pick up a little bit of olive, so I have them both on the brush. I'm going to pinch. Remember, this brush is dry. And I'm just going to drag back and forth. My brush is on the side. You see what I'm doing? Now I got a little bit on my pumpkin. Now you can leave it, or you can just take a Q-tip. Dollar store Q-tip, remember? And I'm just dragging my color. What I'm doing is I'm putting my pumpkin in the ground. Avocado and olive. Pinch. Oh, hi Linda. You're upstate New York. I'm downstate New York. So funny. Since all this, I've never called it downstate. Now I say downstate. It was always, we're just New York and they're upstate. But now we say upstate and downstate. It's a little weird. And see how I'm just going back and forth. Now I might say I'm a little dark or I'm a little light. And just add, I'm going to add a little bit more light spots. And that'll bring some of the grass forward and leave some of the grass behind. See that? I went up to the elements so it hit the pumpkin and it hit the ghost so that it sets it in. Oh, Valerie, I'm glad. You can't see what corner. You got to tell me what corner you can't see. That's Jennifer. I don't know what corner you're talking about. There and there. I don't know if that helped you. If it didn't, tell me. Okay, so now I'm going to stencil. You can stencil anything you want. I just happened to pick this. This has a lot of words. Some people messaged me and said, can I use this word? Can I use that word? The answer is absolutely. You can use anything you want. I have to tell you, Jackie, I wish I was sitting in the heat. It's like 56 degrees yet, and for me, that's just too cold. I don't like cold. Alright, so I'm going to take out some Spiced Pumpkin, which is the color we painted the pumpkin with. And then you can either use Cad Yellow or Heritage Brick, or both. I'm going to pick my words. Now my words aren't together. So I'm going to put my stencil down. Some people tape it. I don't tape it. I just kind of lay it there and hold it. Either way is not wrong. Just do what's more comfortable. I'm going to pick up my stencil brush, which is dry, and I'm going to pick up Spiced Pumpkin. I'm going to rub it off. Remember, just like we were dry brushing, I'm going to rub it off. I'm here, in circles, left, right. Well, clockwise, counterclockwise, clockwise, counterclockwise. And just come in, and you can, okay. I'm going to do it again because I want the letters brighter. Now, if you have too much paint on your brush, what's going to happen? I'm with you, Karen, too cold. What happens is it's going to seep under. You don't want it to seep under, which I think I was too wet in that one. That was pretty good. Now, and this is cheating. So we're going to wipe off our brush, and we're going to pick up some Heritage Brick, and watch this. I'm just going to stencil the bottom half of the letters. So now I just shaded my letters. So you see how now I shade into there? Now just be careful that you don't go into the letters underneath or beside. You can put a piece of paper around it. I'm a little lazy. And then I wanted Haunted Halloween. So I'll come in. Halloween's on here somewhere. And I'll put that, I think that's dry. And I'll do the same thing. Left, right, clockwise, counterclockwise. Scrub it off. Add it again. And then I want to show you something. I'm here. So then I say, oh, look how pretty. And then I say, uh-oh, I forgot to shade. So let me just dry this for a second because I don't want to move it. So if you forget, or you go back and you say, oh, I want to do 2 coats and I forgot. So just give it a second to dry. And then all you do, which is very easy, is you take your stencil and you line it right back up. See how I just lined it back up? Then I'm going to pick up my Heritage Brick. I'm going to dry brush the bottom half of the letters. So now I've shaded the letters without having to float them. Now here's my famous tip. When I clean my stencils, I know everybody has their own way to clean stencils. I bought a cookie sheet at the dollar store because it's my painting cookie sheet now. And I take my stencil and I put it on the back of the cookie sheet. I wet it so it kind of sticks. I take a I think it's a Mr. Clean magic eraser, the magic erasers, and you just, this, and when I tell you it comes clean, you can take off paint that's been there for years. Magic eraser works so good on stencils. So I don't always worry about cleaning them right away because I'll clean them after the fact. Okay? So this lettering's a little darker. And you can see this looks like this background's a different color because I varnished it. It's not. It's as soon as you varnish this, it'll do the same thing. And if you want to put glitter on, I used Glamour Dust paint. I use Limelight on the grass. I use Crystal on the ghosts, and I use Tiger Orange on the pumpkin. So I'll just do one, just so you can see. And let's see if you can see. I don't know if you can see that there's glitter in there. It's paint. See? It's paint. And there's glitter in there. Maybe you could see that. See that? And it will dry like that. So I just come in with a brush. And I just, oh, you can see it on there. And I just come in and I avoid the facial features. But you don't have to avoid the facial features. If you want to go over them, go over them. They also make Glamour Dust in black. And you can do the black. But I come in, and this is just an optional, fun step. And I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here, and I'm here. And I'll just do this on this whole, because I like glitter, not for any other reason. You know, you can come in here and use this. Well, now we'll do the whole stem. You can use this on the whole piece. And this is the clear. Don't use the orange or the green on the whole piece. But you can use the clear on the whole thing too. It's called ice crystal. Okay? I use that a lot. Then you sign, you varnish, you love it. You think of me all the time when you look at it. Okay? Notice I'm not laughing. All right, let me show you the next pieces. The next November piece for this is, ta-da, this. Okay? I happen to love this piece, and I'm not a big fall person. I did this. This, I believe, is an 8x8. I was at AC Moore, and here's a good lesson for you. I was at AC Moore, oh gosh, Hobby Lobby, and they had this. It's an odd looking little thing. It was on clearance for 90% off, so it was $1.39. And they only had 2 left. So I took this and I painted over it and made it this. So always know you can paint anything over anything. Okay? But I believe the surface is 8x8 that I used. You can do it on anything you want. On this, I'll show you how to glitter the letters. These are raised letters. So we're going to do raised letters. We're going to do a whole bunch of bittersweet. And there's stencils on here. Now this is, so I wrote it down, November 18th. November 12th, the beginner class. And the beginner class is always a little bit. I did this. Okay. He's a fun little piece. There's a lot of dry brushing. There's some floating. And you can do 2 pieces. I happen to have the piece. Let's see. I'll put it better in there. You can do it on one big piece. You can leave out the words. You can put the words here. There's a whole bunch you can do. Okay? I will put these on my Facebook. They're on the library webpage already. Aw. Well, then come paint it with me, Diane. I'm going to put it on my Facebook 2 weeks before. December's pieces are from the dollar store. If you go on my Facebook, because I don't have them in my studio, one is Merry Words. They're, I don't know, it's probably 14 inches by 5. And it says M-E-R-R, and then there's a reindeer. I think he's not supposed to be a cute reindeer, but he is. And then this class, the intermediate class, it's a sled that looks like a Santa. There's also one that looks like a snowman. So I'm going to do the Santa in December. And then next year, October, November, December, something like that, I will do that on my Facebook page because I'm sure by then we'll be back to regular library classes. Okay? So that's where we are. Let me flip you around so I can see you all. You can all see my messy studio when I do that, can't you? Ah, there you are. All right, so that's where we are. I say thank you so much for coming. I hope you all have a very happy Halloween. I will see you all before Thanksgiving. And if you have any questions, you can message the library. You can always private message me. I check my messages. The library will also get in touch with me. Remember, these videos are also on the library's Facebook page. All right? Have a wonderful, wonderful night. Thank you all for coming. Good night.